Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekdays at 7 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Listen on demand wherever you get your podcasts or watch us live on YouTube.
Troy Ludtka is with us with SMBC Nikko Securities. He writes a brilliant report with lots of charts. I don't want to go narrow here. I want to go more like 60,000 feet. Are we through the pandemic? Are we through the shutdown when we look at price change in America?
I think we're still in the process of normalization on the prices angle. Short answer.
With the pandemic as well. I still think there's a debris there.
Absolutely, for sure. And then I think the biggest effect is really psychological, not only on behalf of businesses, but also on consumers that are willing to tolerate, high inflation.
I mean, because we know that shelter has always been a big part, a big component, right? Takes up more percentage, I think, of that CPI than any other category. Month over month, I guess it's trending lower, but tell that to somebody who's actually trying to buy something or rent something right now, right?
Well, this is the classic divergence between what economists look at and what people on Main Street actually care about. So the truth is that shelter inflation is coming down. It's coming down pretty quickly, and it's coming down pretty quickly because home prices lead the CPI's measure of shelter costs by about 16 months. So the question ultimately we need to answer is, where are home prices going? And they are weak, and we're expecting that they're going to come down nationally.
I got everybody, Troy, telling me this is not a big deal report. I don't buy it, and particularly with the backdrop with Chairman Powell right now. The fact is, I have people like you who were 2, 3, 4 rate cuts going, wait a minute, maybe not. Are you pulling back the rate reduction scenario that you see because of a set of inflation data?
We're essentially moving back our rate cut expectations. So January, they're likely not going to cut unless the CPI...
shifting it out.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless the CPI report is extremely soft, which we're not expecting.
So are you still looking, I saw in your note, but unless your note was a little bit old just by hours because of the way things move so quickly, are you still looking at 3 rate cuts this year?
Did you just throw shade on our guest?
Well, I mean, no. But things do move at lightning speed, Troy. This we know.
Yeah, geez, it's a little shady in here this morning, huh? No. So we are looking for 3 rate cuts still. We see the economy slowing, particularly in the labor market, and we also see inflation coming down, and that's going to warrant rate cuts.
Yeah, but are you shifting to 27 like J.P. Morgan?
No.
No, you really think we're going to see it now?
3 rate cuts this year.
The way I look at it is Myron wants 6 rate cuts. If he gets 4, he's a genius because he's so alone on this call. Are you on the edge of Myron?
No, we're not looking for 4. We're looking for 3. We think with this new Fed chair coming in, combined with the fact that the regional Fed bank rotation is comparatively dovish to last year's Fed bank rotation, that might be enough to shift the calculus in terms of 3 rates.
The 10-year inflation-adjusted yield is a wonderful trend-based barometer. It's in a very tight collar, if you will. It comes in 2 basis points, 1.8363%, a dampening of yields, a bid to bills, notes, and bonds, and as Lisa mentioned, green on the screen here as well. Troy Ludtka with us, there's like 47 lines of David Rosenberg inflation data. You haven't had time to look at them. I'm not looking for that. But is there color here that you can give of pretty much a rote idea, except, of course, CPI a little more dampened?
Yeah, a bit surprised here that it's core CPI, which misses expectations here at 0.2%, considering the fact that gasoline prices were down nearly 5% on a month-over-month basis. You would expect that it was headline that would be weak. But the fact that core is actually a bit softer is a profoundly strong signal, at least to us, that inflation is coming down, inflationary pressures are dissipating, and the Fed is going to be cutting this year.
Alexis asked a brilliant question earlier about tariff dynamics. Let's combine that with the export of Chinese deflation. Is that an untold story for 2026 of a dampening price change in America because of the realities Beijing faces?
100%. And it's funny because if you look at the 2 most tariff-sensitive components of CPI, you look at household appliances and you look at apparel. The year-over-year rates of change in these prices, 0.5%. We're looking for tariff inflation, really struggling to find it.
I'm looking at this report right now, breaking it down. Food up 0.7% in December. So we're still not getting a break there, right? Americans are still paying more for the basics, and energy increasing 0.3% in December. So again, we're finding that there are these areas of sticky inflation and no reason to believe they're going to come down anytime soon, Troy.
Well, on the energy side of things, what I would add is that that's likely a reflection of electricity prices going higher on the back of higher natural gas prices. Now, it's hard to disentangle how much of this is just a simple commodity effect versus something that is more related to the AI theme. But that is something that we've been worried about for about a year now.
I mean, the reality is there are these little things that people think. You mentioned electricity rates. You know, I go to the internet like everybody else, and I'm sorry, up 8%, up 10%. Elisa just emailed me. We have a whole internal email system, folks, that we took from the U.S. military. And Lisa emails me and says, Tom, what's inflation on DoorDash, Grubhub, and Seamless? And the answer is ginormous. I mean, how far apart are fancy people like you from the public on inflation?
There is for sure a K-shaped economy, and that applies not only to spending, but also in terms of rates of inflation. But this is something that we discussed really in depth in our year ahead outlook, which is that the household net worth of the top 1% is up 18% since the Fed started hiking rates. For the bottom 50%, it's like 8%. So you're really seeing this divergence of fortunes between, we'll say, the middle classes and then those at the very tippy top.
Troy, thank you so much. Troy Ludtka, we're the senior U.S. economist, SMBC at Nikko Securities. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
Holding court in the United Kingdom for ages. Leslie Vinjamuri just was fabulous on international relations. Like the Chicago Cubs picked up Alex Bregman from the Red Sox.
Yep.
The Chicago Council on Global Affairs picked up Vinjamuri.
That's how it
from
went.
Tottenham or something like that. Leslie, how about Chicago?
Arsenal, Tom. Arsenal always.
How's that winter? Well, I know that. We were smoking cigars at that fancy hotel in Belgravia, and Leslie's going Arsenal. I'm going Tottenham. How about those Chicago winters, Leslie Vinjamuri?
Mild so far, 2 pretty frigid weekends. I happen to be in London on one and New York on the other, but Chicago's fabulous. I mean, talk about it looks great when it's on the ground, Tom. The snow is absolutely stunning surrounding Lake Michigan and Millennium Park. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's really something. You should come.
My basic take on our international relations is it's all wonderful until something breaks. How close in our multi-front Trump foreign policy are we to something breaking?
I mean, it definitely feels like it's on the edge. The return early in the new year, I think, was boy, talk about taking off with speed. The capture of Maduro and quickly pivoting to making claims on Greenland, and then Iran of its own accord, people on the streets, and Trump contemplating what his options are. It really is extraordinary, and that's even setting aside the domestic story. I think that international relations hasn't always been easy. It's been very difficult the last 1 year. There's so many questions about the United States, but I think nobody could have predicted that this was going to become so much about preeminence in the Western Hemisphere, about pushing territorial borders, whether it's through threats or actual use of force, taking leaders out. We thought this would be a president who might be neo-isolationist, who might be, inclined towards restraint. That is just not what we're seeing right now, with the major exception of, China, U.S. policy towards China and Russia, exactly where we thought, it might be much tougher, at least when it comes to China. And that, again, that's not what we've seen.
And Leslie, to throw into the mix now, we're ratcheting things up against Iran, right? With the president now saying he wants to impose 25% tariffs on any country doing business with Iran. What are the the implications there as that country now sees its biggest anti-government protests in years and killing of many civilians?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Iran story is an extraordinary one, devastating for the presumably thousands of people who are at risk or have been targeted by the regime. And I think President Trump is weighing his options. You're right; those 25%. He's cracking down on secondary violation of sanctions, basically, and that hits, of course, China and others that he's been lighter touch with. But relative to the other options that the U.S. could be considering, that is perhaps a first step. The real question is whether there will be any use of military force. It obviously a much harder, more risky lift. I'm skeptical at the moment, but Trump today is meeting to consider his options. It could be that we just continue to see cracking down on, these sanctions, as you've mentioned, as sort of and wait and see what happens internally.
Good morning, Chicago. Good morning across America. Leslie Vinjamuri with us here. We continue. Leslie, your hallmark is to always bring in academics. You bring in from Minnesota, Professor Fazal, Tanisha Fazal, and just say she has written the absolute best on autocratic states. How autocratic is the United States of America?
Look, the United States of America is not autocratic. We have a leader with autocratic tendency who likes to, play fast and loose with the rule of law, who doesn't really feel like he should be constrained by Congress, the courts, norms, standard ways of doing things, convention. And this is the year of the people, Tom. This is the year when Americans are, making choices about whether they're going to kind of stand up and hold the line. And we've just seen a bunch of past leaders of the Fed decide that they are going to stand up. We saw a couple of senators, Republican senators, flip over to the other side and vote for, the president to be required to report to Congress if he wishes to do more in Venezuela. So we're seeing a few hints this year, early days, that we didn't see last year. And we have, it's a long ways out still, but we have the midterms coming. So there are, there are some signs that there's going to be a little bit more pushback. We don't live in an autocracy. We live in a, very dysfunctional democracy, but still a very robust democracy, with a leader who, by all accounts, wants to make some changes. Some of his instincts are very good, but he doesn't want to do it through the processes that, we've come to think are, not necessarily efficient, but that are important.
Right. And Trump certainly is unbound and undeterred by precedent. So what happens with little old Greenland in 2026, Leslie? I'm kind of concerned on this one. A couple of things. Obviously, Europeans are rightfully up in arms. They are really talking to each other. They're completely unsettled by the president's willingness to threaten the use of force, to argue that he can get it just, with money and language. It sort of doesn't matter whether he actually uses force in one sense, which is he's already completely unsettled the most important norm that has guided the system at least since 1945. Article 2, Chapter 4 of the UN Charter, you don't use force to unsettle territorial boundaries. It's the sovereignty norm. But here's the rub. If you look at the data, most Greenlanders would prefer to be independent than to be ruled by Denmark. And this is, I think, where the administration is going to play its hand. It's going to push that division internally. It's going to, we've already seen there have been trips by the administration meeting with those leaders of the independence movement. I think that's going to continue. And you can see a scenario where Greenland is given the opportunity to voice its preferences, and it wishes to have an independence. And as we know, Greenland can't really survive as an independent country. It's 57,000 people. It is in a part of the world where it needs more security. So I think this one is definitely a live option and something to watch. And it's going to really rupture relations between the U.S. and Europe.
Les, I got 20 seconds. Cubs or White Sox? You move into Chicago. You're 5 miles south of Wrigley Field. You got the Rockstar location on Randolph Street. Do you make the easy slide to Wrigley Field, or do you vote for those lowly Chicago White Sox?
Tom, always follow the Pope. That's all I can say.
There we go.
Follow the Pope and my daughter, and there you have the op. But I don't choose. I can't choose. I'm independent.
Oh, you're very independent. I can see that. Pope merch on the way in. Leslie Vinjamuri, thank you so much. Really has been way too long in Chicago. Greatly appreciate Leslie Vinjamuri with us. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app, or watch us live on YouTube.
I wanted to get some perspective on this moment for Chairman Powell for the Federal Reserve System. And as we saw with the letter last night, led by Lagarde and Bailey, central bankers around the world. No one is better qualified than Richard Portis. He is at London Business School, but that barely describes his contribution to thinking about global and transatlantic economics, back to his time as a Rhodes Scholar, long ago and far away to Yale. Professor, honored to have you with us this morning. I mentioned McCabe to McChesney Martin in 1951. Is this moment as seismic as 1951?
Potentially, quite yes, absolutely. This is a major attack, not just on a man of unparalleled integrity in his post, but also on the institution, on the Fed itself. And the independence of the Fed is, many people would say, let's not stress this too much. I mean, maybe the Fed is too independent. We really ought to rethink the mandate and so on and so forth. Yes, it's worth having a reflection on all that. But this is something quite different. This is where the President of the United States, through his minions, is seeking to take control of monetary policy. And that, whatever you think about what the Fed has done, might do in future, pressures, etc., that is unacceptable.
The key question for me, Professor Portis, is, okay, we're here. And based on what we've seen the last X number of years with President Trump, he may get his way, etc. Is it repairable? Is your study across your exceptional career, is your study that the system and the American system can repair hurt and harm by one person?
Tom, I think that's a very, very good question, because it goes to the heart of what we mean by trust, by reputation, and how those qualities can be squandered. And once reputation and trust are imperiled, are damaged, they're very, very hard to repair. So if the president were to have his way, then down the road, you would see, I think, a real deterioration in the way that monetary policy is run in the United States. And that has implications for us over here, for outside the United States, because of the effects of Fed policy on money markets throughout the world.
Professor, I was looking at this unprecedented letter from the ECB, and I just want to read a portion of it here. It says, "We stand in full solidarity with the Federal Reserve System and its chair, Jerome Powell." They go on to say that Powell has served with integrity, focused on his mandate, and an unwavering commitment to the public interest. I wonder if this letter at all do you think it will sway President Trump to pull back a little bit, or might it have the opposite effect and have him dig in his heels?
He doesn't care what the foreigners think. That's clear. One way or another. It doesn't matter what the topic is. He still doesn't care what the foreigners think. So certainly not on this one. But it may affect views in the United States Senate, for example, which is quite important. It may affect views in the markets in New York and the financial sector in New York, which has been very silent. I don't know whether Jamie Dimon talked about this issue in his earnings call today, but he should. And where are these guys? They're scared. They're all scared. They're scared that Trump will take revenge against them. That's where we got to.
What's interesting, though, Professor Portes, is we're seeing blowback from within the Republican Party now. A number of, I think it's 3 and counting now, Republican senators saying we're not going to vote on a new Fed chair until the legal matter with Powell is settled. Might that have a little more weight than this letter, you think, from the ECB?
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. That really is a cause for concern for Trump in terms of nominating a new chair, in terms of trying to get other seats on the board of the Fed. There's the resistance now is much stronger. That said, you might think, if you were a member of the Federal Open Markets Committee, you might think that he might try to take revenge against you too, if you consistently vote against.
Richard Portes, I got time for one more question. Lauren Goodwin's here, and we got to get to this CPI report, coming up here in 20 minutes. Professor Portes, as simple as I can, is the Trump moment transportable, translatable to a parliamentary system and a prime minister named Farage? Can the reach of Donald Trump reach over to a different form of democracy?
Well, we had a central bank that was not independent at all, that took its marching orders from the UK Treasury up until the Blair government came in 1997. And the first thing that they did was establish the independence of the Bank of England in terms of monetary policy, the very first move that the Blair government took. And that has made a remarkable change. We had an inflationary boom at the end of the 80s, precisely because the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the finance minister at that time, wanted to have expansion. And so we had a very loose monetary policy. And guess what? We had this inflationary boom, and consequently, we're not nice.
Got to leave it there. Richard Portes, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, from London Business School today on the moment at hand for us and across the Atlantic, as Alexis meant, for a piercing letter from central bankers in the continent of Europe. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
The newspapers with Lisa Mateo.
Okay, I want to start with this one, Tom, because cases of the flu are surging, in case you haven't noticed.
I know.
Anyone here coughing in the studio? The CDC actually says there have been an estimated 15 million cases of the flu. The numbers starting to decline, but they're still high. But there's a few things that are making things easier for some people. Because of COVID, people are more comfortable with taking those at-home tests for the flu, because you took the at-home test for COVID, right? So you're kind of used to doing that. And what they're saying, it's leading to more timely diagnosis. And what that means is that it's easier to take antivirals like a Tamiflu. And that makes people feel better sooner if you take it within those 2 days of getting sick.
Yeah, gotta be within the 48 hours.
Yes,
so if you miss that window, it's tough.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, people are missing the window, but now, since they're used to taking those at-home tests, they're getting diagnosed sooner.
And I see more people are masking up.
Yes.
Like something else we're unfortunately used to because of COVID.
On the train, yeah, definitely. I see that a lot.
I got better quickly. I mean, and John Tucker told me I would.
What miraculous thing did you take? Because you were a lot better than yesterday.
I mostly got horizontal.
You got to sleep.
What do you do? You're sick as all get out, so you just get horizontal. Let's move on. This is depressing.
But he is feeling better. There you go. There's your update. Okay, Super Bowl coming up, right? February 8th. So it's time to talk commercials. It's all about the Super Bowl commercials. I know. Okay, so sources are telling the Wall Street Journal OpenAI is set to air another commercial. It had its debut kind of last year at the Super Bowl for their paid ads. And they're saying you're going to see a flood of AI companies during the Super Bowl too, because the competition is heating up. If you want to know how much an ad is going to cost.
Yes.
Okay, so ad buyers are telling the Journal some advertisers are paying more than $8 million for a 30-second spot.
And what is the ROI on that?
I don't know.
Really?
I mean, it is under a lot of eyeballs, but
Right.
I mean, you think that's just for the spot, but then you have the millions, sometimes tens of millions to come up with the idea, the whole process of the work to get the ad, on top of the $8 million that they have to pay. So it's a pretty big price tag. But
That's quite the investment.
It is. And a lot of these companies, like tech companies, Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Perplexity, I mean, they've all spent like $333 million on TV ads in the U.S. in the last year. So they're putting up the money. They want to get, the word out there because some people still concerned about it.
We're going to have Mandeep Singh, and he's just published in the last hour on Apple and Google. Huge agreement. I think it's been underplayed by the media. I hope to have that for you tomorrow. We're booked solid today. What else do you have?
All right. This last one was on the terminal. Stuck out to me because every time I hear the word longevity, my ears like tune up. I'm always on the longevity kick. Right. Okay. So this one, longevity tourism raises 1.2 trillion questions about loneliness. And this was interesting. The author's name on the terminal, it's Alice Robb here at Bloomberg, attended a wellness retreat in Sardinia. She saw an ad on Instagram, and this is known as like a blue zone. So this is a place where they have traditional lifestyles, healthy populations. So a lot of people go there because it makes them, feel better.
Olive oil.
Yes.
They have olive oil in blue zones.
Yes. So she found that she made these connections in the group, and that she talked to her about the importance of having connections as you get older. And that's where the loneliness kind of episode came in, because a lot of people lose friendships. And she says that's the important part of it. It's a huge business.
What is this, girl talk?
It is. I'm not even looking at you. I'm just looking at Alexis.
I hear what you're saying, but I also think you're never too old to make new friends.
Exactly. And that's what point she's trying to make. She's saying people should get out and do this.
Come on,
Tom!
Put Whoopi in Michael Barr's chair.
You have to go on a retreat and make new
I'll
friends,
give you a
Tom.
retreat. Thank you, I think. Lisa Mateo with the newspapers.
This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live each weekday, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.